Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Paulette Perhach to the show. And I am also excited to get to know her during this interview. We have just met over email and a few minutes before we pressed record. Paulette is a writer's coach, and the founder of Powerhouse Writers. And I just mentioned to her that I've never really had a straight up writer on the show before. So I'm really looking forward to hearing her background, her journey, her experience as a writer and with the writing process. And then towards the end of the episode, she's going to share with us her personal framework for making time for success, getting things done, and being productive. So, welcome to the show, Paulette.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, start us off with just letting us know what drives you,
Mhm.
what keeps you writing, and your history with writing. And you don't know me very well. I tend to put three questions in one. So, there you go. There's your first one.
Yeah, I am a writer who also has ADHD. And people with ADHD tend to have big feelings. And I think it was my big feelings that got me writing in the first place. I remember being 10 years old, getting really upset about something, writing about it, and having this realization that the words that had been circling in my brain were now on this piece of paper. And I felt kind of drained of the emotion that they had brought. So for me, it started as kind of journaling and getting those big emotions out, and then just being in love with story and also being in love kind of with people and adventure and life. So did the whole like sixth grade yearbook thing, was on yearbook all through middle school, high school, then did a magazine journalism degree. And I'm just a very curious person. I remember one time I was visiting a friend in the hospital and we were like walking out, and my friend goes, "Paulette, you're looking in every room that we're walking by." And I hadn't realized I was doing that. I'm just like, what's going on here? What's going on here? Like, I love subcultures. I love how complicated the world is. I love learning. And so that's what has driven me. And I love hearing about something. I just heard recently that the CIA has a venture capital wing. I'm like, what goes on in the CIA's venture capital wing? Like, I need to know, right?
Yeah.
So that's what drives me. And just being in love with the work of others and what the work of other writers has done for me, and knowing that I can do that for someone else if I'm committed to the craft, and really just telling my story in a way that kind of lightens my load of being a human and helps me, understand myself, understand being human, and helps other people too.
Terrific. I love that. I love that your journey started early and
Hmm.
that it was very organic and that it really helped you to feel like you could experience the world in a very full way.
Yeah. I think that's the work of art and really being human.
Yes. Okay. Terrific. And was there anyone who said, you know what, maybe you could journal, or this was something that you came up with yourself?
Well, my mom is a teacher, so I would imagine she had all the materials there. I don't really remember a moment of being invited to journal, but I was really encouraged to explore and write in general and just have an intellectual life.
Okay. Terrific. I was thinking that we would hear stories of writing difficulty. Have you
Hmm.
had those? I don't want to assume, but I have to admit that I was assuming. So let
Yeah.
us know if you have had periods of difficulty, blockage when it comes to writing and what those stories are.
Yeah, kind of nonstop. It's just always part of the life. People will see me and they've seen my Instagram and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, congratulations on everything." And I'm like, "What, the crying? Like, what are you congratulating me on?" Because they don't see behind the scenes. It's always 85 to 90% rejection on every scale, no matter what level you get to, because you're always trying to level up. So once you get published here, you're like, okay, next tier. And once you get to a certain level of being known as a writer, you meet writers who are then on the next tier, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's a real writer. And so it's always difficulty. It's a difficult life. No one, and that's why I love writers, because anyone who's a writer, they're not someone who's just taking the default option in life. They have gone into the advanced options menu and they're like, let's see what goes on here, even though it's so difficult. So that's why I just love being in community with other writers, because writers are just my kind of people. They are alive. They have chosen the hard level. And so absolutely difficult and has never stopped being difficult.
Okay, terrific. And true, I think I from my
Come be a
own
writer, everyone.
well, I'm just reflecting on my own relationship with writing, which is a
Hmm.
long ago process where it kind of straightened out, evened out. But
Mm,
I know that part of my procrastination history involved having to do many pieces of writing, different topics, feeling unsure of what to say, uh, feeling afraid of if I did know what to say, how it would seem when it finally landed
mm,
on the page.
hmm.
And then I was thinking this morning before getting together with you that it was sometime mid-graduate school that it kind of had to sort itself out because there was a lot of writing requirements and I just
Mm,
needed to calm my anxiety system down by not making the writing so complicated. So,
yeah.
but I don't know. I think I was lucky that that happened. But is there a strategy that or system that you take people through to make sure that they have writing flow?
Yes. And it's so funny. With my coaching program, we just got done with our weekly writer's refresh, which is a meeting we do in order to set yourself up for flow. Because I think everyone's seeking flow. We love flow, right? It feels so good to be in the flow. And people focus on getting to flow. They don't focus on the things you have to get away from you or like nix in order to have flow happen. And so for me, it's really important to have that time set up so that you can fully sink into your work. And in my Finnish framework, one of the I's stands for immerse because that is the joy of really being able to sink in. But if you're worried about, like, oh, I haven't gone through my emails in a really long time, is there anything important in there? Or oh, I really didn't take care of this, or am I sure I can dedicate this time? That's really going to keep pulling you out of those deeper intellectual levels where you can really sink into your creative work.
Terrific. Okay. Why don't we go into the Finnish
Yeah.
framework since you mentioned I and it sounds fantastic and I
Hmm.
love how you cover all the different bases in the acronym Finnish. So why don't you do
Hmm.
that now?
Sure.
I think that's a good time.
Great. So let's start with the F. So the F is stands for fake stakes, and this was one of the first lessons that I learned as a writer. So when you are a professional writer and you have an editor waiting for your work, or your agent waiting for your work, that's gonna make you feel nervous. You're like, I've got to write today because this person's waiting. Before that, there are like no stakes. There's no answer to the question, what would happen if I didn't write today? And so you have to invent one. So this could include taking a class, having a coach, signing up for an open mic night. So I was in straight journalism and then I did Peace Corps. And in Peace Corps, I realized I wanted to be a creative writer. And the first thing I did was sign up for our big like Peace Corps talent show in front of 200 volunteers at our big Thanksgiving weekend. Terrified. I had 3 months. I was terrified. I worked every day on my piece and was really happy with the outcome. It was super fun. So that has been a consistent. I always am like, what is scaring me right now? Or just lighting that fire under my butt. So the
Love it.
I, yeah,
Those were real
thanks.
stakes. Those
Those are,
are like
yeah,
that was real stakes. Yeah.
yeah, they are in a way, they're in a way fake in the way that you have created them, but they feel very real. You make them real. So the first I stands for increment. So it's about taking, I want to be a writer or I want to write my memoir and saying, what does that look like today? What can I check off the list today? So in my software for writers, I have a habit tracker and you have a daily goal, right? What is it you want to do every day or every week? For some people can't write every day. And being able to say, yes, I did this. No, I did not do this. It helps you feel like you've done enough, right? When you've planned out and said, okay, a page a day equals a book in a year. So I know if I got my page done today, I'm safe to know that I will have a book done in a year. If you don't have these increments or these levels, we can always feel like I haven't done enough. I haven't done enough. So it's really helpful to have an increment and a schedule.
Love it.
The N stands for nix. So nixing distractions. And so for this, I, give my coaching students the Freedom app, which is a great app for blocking distracting websites, so social media, the news, even anything that distracts you. And also, I don't have a TV in my home because if I had it, like I walk into some people's TVs at their living rooms, I'm like, this is all I would do. This is a great TV. I would just watch this great TV all the time. And Nix can also mean prioritizing. So, what are the projects you're not doing now so that you can focus on this is the one project I am doing now? And people don't think about distractions or artworks they might want to make or creative pieces they might want to make, but it's just you can't do everything now. So what are you going to do now and what are you going to do later?
Okay.
Yeah. The
These are
second
tough,
I,
these are tough steps, right? You
yeah,
need to
they're not
have a
easy.
lot of self-discipline and commitment
Hmm.
to moving forward, right? But it sounds like this framework really helps you to get there.
Yeah,
Is
it's
there a commitment piece before finish starts? Wondering about that.
interesting. It's about a way to like reverse engineer discipline. So I use the Freedom app because I don't have the discipline to sit here and not click on Instagram while I'm writing a difficult piece, right? And so I can like I watch TV on my laptop sometimes, like it kind of sucks, and like if I don't have to have the discipline to not watch my big TV, I just don't have a big TV.
Yeah.
So it's really, I think, helping to systematize discipline.
Okay. Terrific.
Yeah. Yeah. So the second I is for immerse. And so that is really finding time and blocking off time to fully sink into your work. I use meditation in my daily writing group that I have. We meet every day at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. And I lead a 10-minute meditation and then we all write together for 45 minutes. So that meditation is a really good tool to sink into your work. And I think also just having a plan and knowing that the rest of your life is organized and right now is your writing time and you don't have to do anything else. And that's the best gift to give yourself.
Beautiful. And thank you for having that kind of community. I'm sure it's such
Yeah,
a
I love it.
gift to your followers and students. That's beautiful. Right.
Yeah, we
Terrific.
started it during COVID and it's been wonderful. So the S is for share, and this is about creating community around your writing goals, which helps shift your identity toward, yes, I am a writer. I am one of these people. Susan is submitting to River Teeth magazine. I should submit there. This person got a piece done. There's no reason I shouldn't have my piece done. And so it's really helping to create that social connection around your work so that number one, it just helps you get it done faster. You have people to ask questions, people to commiserate and pick you up when you're down, people to celebrate with you. It just makes it more fun. And then I think it also helps with the identity piece. And if anyone's read Atomic Habits, like the identity is such a big part of keeping up with your habits.
Hmm.
Yeah. And
I find that before you go on to H, I
yeah.
find that people are somewhat reluctant to do the S part.
Hmm.
The feeling that, well, it's maybe private or I'm not yet feeling the identity. And what would you say to the people who think, really, now I'm interested, but I'm just gonna stay here. I'm gonna stay in my cubicle and I'm gonna just plug away and feel afraid about myself. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, it reminds me of when I moved to Seattle and I found out there was a writing center there. And I was like, oh, for writers, like those writers, those people who are writers. And then I let myself like go to one reading and go to one event and I met people and they all sounded just like me. Even people who had books published were like totally having all kinds of anxiety about their writing lives. And I was like, oh, I'm not that different from these people. And then they had a community night and I said, you know what? I'm going to go. I'm going to decide that I'm going to be part of this community. So I think, my friend Stephanie O'Connell says ambition is vulnerable. And so sometimes joining a community is vulnerable. It's like, yes, I want to be a part of what these people are doing. And I want to be a writer. And that can feel vulnerable. And you don't have to share your work necessarily. I think it's just sharing your writing life and your goals with other people and being in community.
I love it. Okay,
Yeah.
please proceed with H.
And the H, last but not least, is the H, which is hype. And this is all about your mental and emotional state as you sit down to write. And I've realized that has got to be in place before any writing happens. Definitely, I can sit down and vent in my journal when I am not feeling it. But for example, yesterday, woke up just having really bad anxiety, and it was on my calendar, it was my novel writing time. And I said, you know what? I need to go to the gym first because I know I'm always just one workout away from feeling better, which is something I heard someone say, and I've been repeating it to myself. And I, you know, definitely felt absolutely better afterward. I was like, I've struggled with anxiety, which can come along with ADHD, especially for women. And so it's old hat. I know how to handle it, And I was like, here it is again. Okay. And then when I'm in that better mental state, I can sit down and really have access to my creativity. So same thing if you are really stressed out, we kind of go from our prefrontal cortex, which has language and memory. It's the last part of our brain that we evolved, to our limbic system, which is the fight or flight. And that's like no creativity. We're just trying to like survive right now. And so it's really important to calm yourself and have full access to your entire brain before you go into your writing life. And so that for me includes eating well when I can. I either am eating like total trash or like organic quinoa kale salad. So I try to keep it on the organic kale quinoa salad side till I pass like a Chick-fil-A. And I'm like, okay, let's go to the trash side for a second. But in general, mostly I try to do healthy food, exercise, meditation, and just like positive self-talk. We're very comfortable berating ourselves. We're like, I never talk to myself unless I'm yelling at myself and telling myself how terrible I am. And you can be nice to yourself. I didn't know this for a few decades. And then
Uh-huh.
I found it out. I was like, wow, that feels better.
Uh,
So just talking to yourself nicely. Be like, all right, buddy. Wow, we messed that one up. All right, let's try again. What are we gonna do? Right. So your mental state and the story you're telling yourself, about your creativity, about your life are so important.
Beautiful. You've done a lot of inner work to help
Hmm.
your writing work. I love that. And one question I have at this point is you mentioned the ADD and the
Hmm.
emotions. What about
Hmm.
the ADD and I guess the pace of thoughts or
Yeah.
the variety of thoughts and how you work with that as you're trying to get some work done. How do you
Yes.
trust yourself? How do you calm yourself? You mentioned a few things. But I'm curious about the volume of thoughts right now.
Yes, so that is a whole thing. And so I actually designed a software for writers to help them stay organized, which was a pretty extreme reaction to having ADHD. It's called the Writer's Mission Control Center. And so I try to put everything in there. When I am just sitting and writing, I like to have what I call my admin notebook with me, which is where anything that pops up in my head, I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna take a second and write, email John about whatever. And then it's on my to-do list. And then I have that writer's refresh every week where I look in my admin notebook and take out those to-dos. And then really just relying on like phone, reminders. One thing I like to do is during my writer's refresh, which I do them on Fridays at noon, I like to set a bunch of reminders to come in, remind me Friday at noon, remind me Friday at noon. And then I'm sitting down, I'm doing my weekly refresh, and all the reminders come in. I'm like, okay, this is everything I have to handle. It's just like a nice little list from the entire week. So I think it's about really learning to triage your thoughts really well and not let them take over so that we can get into this hyper focus mode, which is like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like in that Mario Kart where you hit the rainbow and you're like, "Do, do, 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 do," like you're just like, "Brr." And when you're working on something good, it's amazing. You're like, oh, I am like getting things done. When it's anxiety that's taken over, rumination, or something you shouldn't be doing, not online shopping, but online shopping, then it can be a problem. So it's about just really learning to control your mind as best as possible. And sometimes I'll be in hyper focus and I'll be like, you get 5 more minutes. Like I cannot just stop. I have to be like, okay, 5 more minutes and then I can stop, like ramping down so slowly. It's wild. It's really wild.
Yeah, I'm not a Mario Kart player, but I love the imagery of we're really managing and driving a machine
Mm-hmm.
and there's so much to be coordinated that
Mm-hmm.
we have the controls for and sometimes it can get a little wonky and wacky but it can also be very magical and I guess
Mm-hmm.
rainbow-like when you're conscious and when you're feeling calm, when you're feeling like you've got things relatively under control. I love that you've developed software and systems for writers to have that level of control. So that's
Mm-hmm.
amazing
Thank
work.
you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. So could we shift to the kind of work and the kind of writing that you do? Because I had the benefit of reviewing a little bit before we got on the call today, and I just think it's bright, it's hysterical, it's meaningful, it's a lot of things all at
Thank
once.
you.
And you're welcome. And could you describe the evolution of your voice as a writer?
Yeah. So a lot of things all at once is a great way to describe the ADHD writer. I work sometimes I'm like, I just need to like pick my one thing and do it, and that's just not ADHD. So I, like I said, started out with journalism. I loved doing feature stories. And then I realized I was kind of like trying to do more creative work within the newspaper. I asked to retell a story in first person, which they let me do, which was really cool and creative. But, then I got exposed to more creative writing and I was like, oh, I love this. I read Dave Eggers' um, a heartbreaking work of incredible genius, and I was like blown away, which is a just fantastic piece of nonfiction. And so I think it's been in learning everything that is out there and seeing all the options that I'm like, oh, let me try this, let me try that. So I do love to write satire. Satire is really fun. And one thing I found is that every satire piece could also be a sad essay. So one piece I wrote was called My Personal Brand is I Don't Want to Die. And it's about everything that we have to do, everything we have to like keep up as independent workers, the branding and to make enough money to pay for our health care so we don't die because and I have a line in there that's like, I understand that people with traditional employment deserve to live more than we do. That makes sense,
Yes.
and that could have easily been what I call my sad girl essays, of which there are many. A sad girl essay about we deserve to just because we have a different form of employment doesn't mean this. And that could have been a very earnest sad girl essay or the satire. And so you never quite know what form a piece will take. I love writing about really cool people doing cool things. So that's a big part of what I've done. Um, and I've certainly been influenced by the struggles I've had. My famous piece is a story of an F off fund, which is about how every woman should have enough money to tell someone to F off if an F off is deserved. And that comes out of my own experience of being an impulsive spender and like just feeling like any money that is in my hands, any money that's in my hands just feels like an idea. And oh, I have an idea. Wow, wouldn't this, let's do this, which is like such a beautiful part of my personality. I love life. I love travel. I love doing stuff. I want a big life. And we've got to learn to put the brakes on, But one of my favorite descriptions of ADHD is it's like a Ferrari engine with a golf cart brakes. So, so that piece about like how, and that was before I was diagnosed, so I didn't know, you know, that came out of my own struggles and then seeing how it would have been different if I had saved money, which like continues to be a struggle for me. It's not like, oh, that
Mhm,
solved me.
mhm.
So I think I'm really inspired by other people. I have very vulnerable pieces, and I teach a class called Posing Naked on the Page, actually, about vulnerability in the personal essay. And I've been inspired by other people I've seen do it. And this stuff,
Mhm.
I'm people's boss, and they can go Google my breakup if they want to. And so I'm really about kind of like living on this really deep, out on a limb level of being a human. And that's what
Yes.
it means to be an artist.
I love this. I love your voice. I love your pieces. That line about people with traditional healthcare and not really worked, by the way. And I'm reflecting that a lot of my audience, I think, have the Ferrari brakes. That
Mm,
they actually have a sense that they are made for more, but they're more used
mm,
to holding back or playing small or feeling overwhelmed in the moment and not being able to really get to the next phase or the next regulated state of themselves. And
Hmm.
so I love your energy. I love how you play really big. I love how you've worked it. You haven't said, well, it was just a 10-year-old essay and then everything's been roses since. So you really are
Yeah.
very vulnerable in your writing and in your public pieces. And I really
Mhm.
encourage everyone to follow Paulette and just follow her journey. And please
Mm.
let us know how people can become writers and study with you, join your community. Let us know all the things.
Yeah, so I love helping writers be writers. My mom was a first grade teacher, and I definitely have a teacher's heart, but I love adult education more. So, and I'm also about, in that community that I talked about, having the community be like, let's do it together, right? Body doubling is a big thing for people with ADHD. So, sitting down and now is the time we're writing together. So, people can join my daily writing group, a very important meeting, which so they can just join on that level. I also have something called the Finishing School for Writers, which is a 6-month program. And at some levels, it includes one-on-one editing with me. So you meet with me for half an hour or an hour a week to go over your work and edit and workshop your work. And we also have, kind of like a client-only open bike day. We meet every Friday for our writers refresh and do that together. We have submission sessions. So really everything that it takes to be a writer, we're meeting up and we're doing it together. So it's people who are like, I have been wanting to do this for decades. I've never done it before. I'm serious now. Now is the time. Like, let's go. And then if people want to use the Writers Mission Control Center, that's at the writersmissioncontrolcenter.com.
Terrific. And may I ask, just to check for our listeners who maybe have never considered themselves writers and are
Yeah.
really at the beginning level but are curious, are your sessions appropriate for those people?
Yeah, for sure. I also have my book, Welcome to the Writer's Life, which I think helps people feel like, okay, I kind of get it now. But I love starting writers. And in a way, I love kind of like, sorry, getting my hands on them first. Because they haven't, like, I wasted so much time and it's so nice to work with people. It's like, you haven't wasted any time yet. You didn't, like, I was like, sending my work out. Like the first year I wanted to be a creative writer, I'm like, oh God, no, to the New Yorker, don't tell anyone. It's so embarrassing. But like, because I was like, I'm gonna be discovered. It's like, no, calm down. So now, if I were in my first 3 years, I would be like, you're reading a lot, you're writing a lot, you're honing your voice, you're learning. Like that's what you're doing with your first time. And then also with the Writers Mission Control Center, so many people are like, I've been listing all of my submissions in a Word document. And now they have to kind of like move their janky system over to this system and you can just start fresh. And so, yes, send me all the blank slates. I can help you get started really strongly and not do all the mistakes that I did when I was just
All
starting
right.
out.
That sounds like a great promise. I love it. And Paulette has kindly offered a free first session
Hmm.
to a very important meeting. And I'm going to create the link for us. It's maketimeforsuccesspodcast.com/writing session. Again, it's maketimeforsuccesspodcast.com/writing session. So could you give a sense to people who are interested what they will find once they go through that link?
Yeah, so you'll just pick a date on the Calendly, and then you come in and we all say hi for like the first 5 minutes. Then the leader, it's myself or one of the associate coaches who will lead a 10-minute meditation. And then we all just write together for 45 minutes. And at the end, we kind of hang out and we say, how was your writing? How was your writing? And, it's so fun to see, someone will be blocked, like, I'm still having trouble. I'm still having trouble. And then one day they're like, today was the day I finally got it done. And we're all like, yay. We're like feeling those celebrations with each other. And, some people are like, today's the day I actually, finished the novel. And it's really cool. So it is like we're all on this road together. And that community really helped me see, I think there's a lot of pressure on artists to be like, I need to be the best writer ever. Like for me, I was like, what if I become a writer and I never win the Pulitzer Prize? It will be humiliating, right? And instead, you just see, instead of being this, I need to be the most beautiful singular flower in a vase, you're like, I am just one flower in like a field of wildflowers. And like, this is what we're doing. And I'm just in community with people who love the beauty of this artwork. And that in itself is such a joy and such a payoff.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for establishing this kind of community. I'm honored to interview you today. Grateful for your time and your essence and your motivation to do this. Really, I'm really impressed
Oh,
and
thank you for having me.
have thank you for being here and thanks for sharing your light with us on the show today. Maybe leave us with a wish for our burgeoning writers and people who are
Yes.
mid-process.
Yeah, so this is funny because I sign all my emails, may you something something. So I will say, may you free yourself from the illusion that writer is a label rather than writing is a joy you are invited to, and no one can take away from you.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much, Paulette. It's been a
Thank you,
pleasure.
Christine.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to me and Paulette get to know each other. It's been amazing. Remember that link is maketimeforsuccesspodcast.com/writing session to connect more with Paulette. And we'll connect again next Thursday when the next episode drops. Thank you so much. Bye.